So Larian updated us with a list of upcoming feats around a month ago in their community update number 20, and I'll leave a link to that below. Ever since then, I've been meaning to do a video going over these newly announced feats, but also talking about what feats really stand out in the game and may be worth considering adding to your build. Many of you, including myself, are in the phase right now where we're trying to figure out our class and race and build, and well, it's not going too well for me at the moment. I got a little bit of choice paralysis. I'm not sure about you all, but hopefully this video will help you out a little bit. So let's jump right into it. So feats in Baldur's Gate 3 represent a talent or an area of expertise that gives a character special capabilities beyond what a given class may provide. So if you're looking for a little something extra that you may not be able to get with your class, choosing a feat may be to your benefit. Now do keep in mind though that we now know that multiclassing is 100% confirmed, and sometimes you can look to taking a level or two in another class to get something that you're looking for. Don't forget, the more that you multi-class, the less that your max level becomes in any given class. Now, I did do an in-depth multi-classing video recently, and I'll leave a link to that below. So when your character reaches levels 4, 8, and 12 in any given class, and this is actually 4, 6, 8, and 12 if you're a fighter, they're presented with the choice to increase 2 ability scores by 1, or to forego that and take a feat instead. So in simple terms, do you want to boost your stats, or do you want to get a cool extra talent or new capability? Now do note that the footage that you're seeing right now is early access footage, and it does not contain the full list of feats, even though I will be talking about them all here shortly. Now generally speaking, taking the ability score increase instead of a feat is pretty much never a bad idea. So if you're leveling up and feats just seem like a little bit too much, you may be a little overwhelmed in this brand new RPG, or you just can't figure out what feat is right for you, don't feel bad at all just taking the ability score increase and getting your primary ability score to 20 as fast as you can. Now with that said though, there are some great feats, and if you know what you're picking and you're willing to go a little outside of the norm of traditional class progression, you can become an absolute beast. Let's first quickly talk about the hybrid feats, which are a little bit more boring than the other ones, but hang in there with me. And these are the feats that actually still give you an ability score increase, but only by 1, while also giving you an additional benefit. These additional benefits many times are not as crazy or cool as some of the non-hybrid feats, but choosing one of these hybrids offers a way for you to keep upping your primary ability score while also getting a little something extra. So these feats are best used for when you have an odd number and an important ability score, such as having a 17 in an important ability score if you choose to max out your primary ability score in character creation. So if I have a 17 in strength with my strength-based ranger, and I pick up the heavily armored feat at level 4, my strength gets boosted to 18, and I also pick up heavy armor proficiency. It's kind of like the best of both worlds if I was looking for heavy armor proficiency and doing a build around that, even though you can get it earlier as a ranger. Now the lightly armored and the moderately armored feats work similarly, except both of these allow you to increase your strength or your dexterity by 1. And of course, lightly armored gives you light armor proficiency, and moderately armored gives you medium armor proficiency. Now moderately armored stands out here, as gaining medium armor proficiency can be an amazing value, especially for those of you that may have subpar dexterity. Perhaps you're Pact of the Blade Warlock, you end up leaving your dexterity at 13 in character creation. You end up taking the moderately armored feat, which will boost your dexterity to 14, boosting the modifier, and you also gain medium armor proficiency for your melee focused lock. That's a pretty big armor class boost while also making your dexterity modifier an even number. Do note that some of the feats have prerequisites though, such as the moderately armored feat requiring light armor proficiency. So classes such as the rogue and the warlock would be able to take this, but a straight up wizard or sorcerer would not. You'd have to find another way to get it. Now the other feats in early access that are hybrids include athlete, performer, and weapon master, none of which are really anything too special to talk about, but also note that it's not always about optimizing everything perfectly. There's also a ton of hybrid feats on the upcoming feat list, and we'll get to that here shortly. Now the feats in early access that stand out to me are Great Weapon Master, and you're going to hear more about that when we go over the new feats. I love Great Weapon Master for my damage focused heavy weapon wielding characters. I feel like taking it almost every time. Mobile can be an amazing feat if you really want to take mobilization to the next level. And I actually personally love the dual wielder feat for the sole reason that you get to dual wield weapons that don't have the light property, which can make you look pretty badass. Now, since I went over every single early access feat in a previous video, which was like a year and a half or 2 years ago, let's move on to the newly announced feats, and I'll leave a link below to that previous video for you to watch after. So here is the list of the new feats, starting off with Actor. Actor increases your charisma score by 1 while also giving you advantage on deception and performance checks when trying to pass yourself off as a different person. So this is also a hybrid feat. Now, if you're really building a character that's built around this type of role-playing and you love spells like Disguise Self, this feat will really make you almost perfect at it. And in the city of Baldur's Gate, this could be quite useful, but I also can't help but think that this may be more useful in D&D 5th edition than Baldur's Gate 3, because Baldur's Gate 3 is held back by some limitations. Alert is a feat that makes it so you can't be surprised while conscious, and you gain a +5 bonus to initiative. And other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being unseen by you. Now, really, the +5 to initiative is the big thing here, and getting an earlier position in the order of turns can change the shape of an entire battle, so not a feat to be overlooked for those of you guys that really want to focus on that. The Charger feat makes it so when you use your action to dash, you can use a bonus action to make one melee weapon attack or to shove a creature. And also, if you move at least 10 feet in a straight line, you'll get a +5 bonus to your bonus weapon attacks damage, or you can get a more powerful shove. So picture a paladin opening up combat by dashing in and still getting to Divine Smite and taking out an enemy right at the start of an encounter. Crossbow Expert allows you to ignore the loading quality of crossbows that you're proficient in, which basically means you can use a crossbow more than once in a single turn when you use features such as extra attack. Because without this feat, you can't do that because crossbows take time to load, and this is one of the biggest differences between bows and crossbows. Crossbow Expert also makes it so you don't have disadvantage on your crossbow shot when within 5 feet of a creature, and it allows you to use your bonus action to attack with a hand crossbow in your offhand when you use the attack action and attack with a one-handed weapon. But I think you can already do that in Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe not. But yeah, Crossbow Expert can be really good for those of you who want to play a martial class that gets extra attack, and you want to build yourself around being a crossbow wielder. The highest damage that a base bow can deal is 1d8 using a longbow, while the heavy crossbow deals 1d10. And if you're using Crossbow Expert, you get to shoot that crossbow twice in one turn if you have features such as extra attack. If you didn't have this feat, you would probably lean more towards using a bow because bows by default can attack more than once in one turn. Dungeon Delver gives you advantage on perception and investigation checks when made to detect secret doors. It gives you advantage on saving throws made to avoid or resist traps, and it gives you resistance to the damage dealt by traps. So if you're trying to make that ultimate scout character, you could consider this feat. Durable gives you a +1 to Constitution, and I think Larian will probably have their own homebrew for its other benefit here, as the 5th edition one doesn't really apply to Baldur's Gate 3. Perhaps Larian's homebrew will be something like when you take a short rest, you get full hit points back no matter what. Either way, probably not the greatest feat in the book. Elemental Adept allows you to choose Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder and make it so when you cast a spell of that type, it will ignore resistances to that damage type. So if you're fighting an enemy that is resistant to fire damage, let's say, if you have this feat, they're not resistant to your fire spells. And this feat also turns your 1 damage rolls into a 2, and you can select this feat multiple times, choosing a different damage type, although that would be a pretty big sacrifice in Baldur's Gate 3 to give up 2 ability score increases and take this again, but it could work for some builds. Now, I can see this feat being good for those who are struggling with a boss that has a lot of resistances, so you end up going back and respecking and grabbing this feat, and then after you kill the boss, maybe just respec out of it. Just an idea. It could also be good to just polish off your build if you're really focused on one, type of element for your spellcaster. Just make them the best at it in all situations. Heavy Armor Master allows you to increase your strength by 1, and also, while wearing heavy armor, physical damage that you take from non-magical attacks is reduced by 3. So this could potentially be good for your more tanky focused characters as long as you set up that odd ability score in strength. The lucky feat is an interesting one as it basically gives you luck points, 3 of them in D&D 5th edition. You can spend these points to roll an additional attack roll, saving throw, or ability check, or you can spend a point on an attack roll made against you. And if your roll is worse than the enemy's attack roll, the enemy will use your roll, making them more likely to miss. And these luck points recharge on a long rest. Who knows how Larian will implement this though. This is known to be a very powerful feat in D&D 5th edition. Mage Slayer makes it so when a creature is within 5 feet of you and casts a spell, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against them. And also, when you damage a creature that's concentrating on a spell, that creature will have disadvantage on their saving throw that they make to attempt to hold their concentration. And we're not done yet. You'll also have advantage on saving throws against spells cast by creatures within 5 feet of you. So if you really like the idea of focusing yourself on getting in the face of casters, you may consider this one, but you also probably want to make sure that your character is quite mobile. Maybe like you have the jump spell or long strider to make sure that you can always get to the casters when you want to. Observant increases your intelligence or wisdom by 1 and also gives you a +5 bonus to passive perception checks and passive investigation checks. So definitely a bit more RP focused, but with that said, if you're playing as a wizard, for example, and you put 17 in intelligence, you could take this feat to boost it to 18, while also making it much more likely that you're going to be discovering more things as you walk around in the world. Polearm Master is an interesting one, and this feat makes it so that when you take the attack action with polearm type weapons, you can use a bonus action to make a weaker melee attack with the opposite end of the weapon, and the damage die for that will be D4. Now also, while wielding polearm weapons, other creatures will provoke opportunity attacks from you when they enter the reach that you have with the weapon that you're using, the polearm weapon. So anytime an enemy moves into your reach, so let's say 10 feet with the spear, you get a reaction opportunity attack. So if you like these types of weapons and you can move strategically and really think about battlefield positioning, you can make great use out of this feat. And it also pairs nicely with Great Weapon Master. Resilient increases 1 ability score of your choice by 1, so you actually get to choose what ability score with this feat, and you also gain proficiency in saving throws in that particular ability. This can actually be pretty good if you plan that odd number out with one of your important ability scores, and you also want to have some extra defense. Now, dexterity, constitution, and wisdom saving throw proficiencies are probably the most useful. Intelligence can be as well. If you really feel like you're lacking and you want to kind of tidy up any of your character's weaknesses, this may be a good feat. Ritual Caster in Baldur's Gate 3, I'm not exactly sure how Larian will do it, but if I had to guess, this feat will probably give you a choice of 2 first level spells from a few different spell lists. But these spells are going to be more utility based in nature, such as the Find Familiar spell, and you'll be able to use these spells once per long rest without expending a spell slot. Savage Attacker makes it so that you get to re-roll your weapon's damage dice once per turn and take the higher result. Now this might sound good at face value, and I'm sure that it does have its uses, but you're probably better off increasing your primary ability score to the next modifier or just taking a different damage focused feat. This only works for 1 weapon attack on your turn, and as you level up with the martial classes, you're getting multiple attacks per turn, and this also has diminishing returns as you level up. So it's not really as much of a damage boost as it may sound. Sentinel is all about reactions, and when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, that creature's speed goes to 0 for the rest of the turn. This feat also makes it so creatures will provoke an opportunity attack from you even if they use the disengage action. This can be really good against creatures such as goblins who get disengage as a bonus action and they're always popping it. And we're not done yet. Sentinel will also make it so when a creature makes an attack against a target other than you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against the attacking creature. This is a pretty good feat for those of you who value, frontline battlefield control. And this feat is really deadly against mobile enemies, especially goblins who run all over and use disengage all the time. Sharpshooter is the feat that I'm excited to talk about here, as it's really good for those of you that want to use ranged weapons and know how to use it. The Sharpshooter is basically the ranged version of Great Weapon Master, which is one of my favorite feats in the game. The Sharpshooter not only makes it so attacking at long range will no longer give you disadvantage, but it also allows you to get a +10 boost to your damage with a ranged weapon at the cost of a -5 to your attack roll. Great Weapon Master is similar to this, but with heavy melee weapons. Now that +10 is a lot of damage, and as long as you know of ways to offset the -5 to your attack rolls, such as gaining advantage on your attack and having spells such as Bless cast on you, this can equal a ton of extra damage throughout your entire playthrough. But it's really important to note that you need to understand ways to offset the -5, otherwise feats like this will be extremely frustrating to you, as you'll find yourself missing the vast majority of your attacks. The cool thing is you can actually turn it off though. Now with that said, Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master can be two of the most powerful feats in the game for those of you who are looking to really maximize damage. Spell Sniper is a feat that doubles your range when you cast spells that require an attack roll, and it allows you to learn a cantrip that requires an attack roll. This can be pretty good if you build a caster around using spells that require attack rolls, such as, Scorching Ray or the cantrip Eldritch Blast, as your caster will be able to stand really far away from the battle and just sling these spells in. And it's going to be much harder for enemies to attack your caster when you do this. Tavern Brawler lets you increase your strength or constitution by 1. It makes you proficient with improvised weapons. An example would be like picking up a chair off the ground. This feat makes your unarmed strikes use a d4 for damage, and in Dungeons & Dragons it also lets you grapple for a bonus action after an unarmed strike or a strike with an improvised weapon. But grapple is not in Baldur's Gate 3, so I'm not exactly sure what Larian will do for that. Basically, this feat excels if you're actually in a Tavern Brawler, you're just fighting kind of like unarmed with improvised weapons in the city somewhere. That could be really fun and useful, but in combat, not really as powerful. There's a lot better choices out there for a feat, but since you get the +1 to strength or con, you can use this to add a little bit of flavor to your build and be a little bit more powerful, picking up random things on the ground and things like that. In the last newly announced feat to be coming to Baldur's Gate 3, and certainly not least, is Warcaster. Warcaster gives you advantage on constitution saving throws that you make when you're trying to hold your concentration on a spell that requires concentration, and it allows you to cast a spell as an opportunity attack. Now, for caster builds that focus on concentration spells, you kind of have to have a little bit of knowledge on spells in this game before you just know that you're going to take this feat. This can be a really good feat. It's going to be very hard for an enemy to end your concentration on a spell when you have advantage on that constitution saving throw. Now, there's a lot of opinions out there on a lot of these feats for D&D 5th edition. Some people think some of them are great. Some people think some of them are trash. I think you guys probably got my opinion as I read through them, because I tried to let you know with each one, if I had an opinion, how I felt about it. So some of these feats do stand out, but also, just remember that you can respec in this game. So if you want to try something, just try it, especially if you're not playing on Tactician, which most of you probably won't be on your first run. Try things out and just see if it works. Some of these feats can be a lot of fun, especially the ones that are more damage focused, and some of them just offer more utility, and some of you guys value utility over combat situations. Thank you all so much for watching, and once I actually have the full game and can show it off to you guys, I will give examples for these feats and do much more in-depth videos. I'll catch you all on the next one.